Hello, thanks for joining a new video. Today we review the realme GT7. Let's begin. This device is certainly among the most competitive ones offered by this manufacturer. There are many devices available from this brand, and it can get somewhat confusing to determine the right choice with so many options out there. However, trust me, this would be a wise choice. Anyway, we will go through it point by point later. For the moment, let's discuss its price, which has been announced in Mexico at 10,999 pesos. The price is about $585. Keep in mind that prices differ between locations. This is for the base model with 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. There's a version with 512 GB that costs 11,999 pesos, which is approximately $640, and this price remains quite competitive. Therefore, in both versions, we can observe advantageous features, particularly when compared to many of its competitors, who mostly do not provide such powerful processors. Although, of course, in the mid-range, everyone will have to decide what to sacrifice. This device can certainly compete very well. We must consider that its distribution is exclusively through Mercado Libre and Amazon, so it will be a little difficult to acquire it in physical stores. Obviously, in other countries, this will vary. Let's describe it physically. The front has ultra-thin bezels, which is rare in this range, making it look very modern and like a top-range device. Additionally, it is safeguarded with an Marcial glass that was developed by Realme. The manufacturer claims it can withstand drops from heights of up to 1.5 meters and also effectively prevents scratches. This protection is particularly useful if it directly impacts the ground. However, it is not just the glass that is referred to as Marcial. Realme uses this same name for the entire structure. This is because the internal part features metal reinforcement and a multi-layer foam system, functioning like an internal airbag to absorb impact during falls, which should provide additional protection. Furthermore, he notes that the frames are constructed from a material. It is quite strange. It is a chemical material that is called indium, a material that is the first time I see it used in cell phones. It appears to be brushed in a nice way. Honestly, at this moment, I am not sure how resistant it might be to any falls. However, based on chemical information, it is less resistant than aluminum. So, that is something you should keep in mind. It doesn't seem like it will withstand excessive side falls, so you need to take good care of it. On the right side, you will find the volume buttons along with the on-off button, which is in an attractive red tone. At the top, we have two microphones, along with a secondary audio output, and also the infrared port, which allows it to function as a universal remote control. The left side is entirely clean, and this side view lets us appreciate its thickness of 8.3 millimeters. Meanwhile, at the bottom, we will find the tray where two nano SIM cards can be placed. Additionally, there is another microphone, the USB-C port, and finally we have the grill for the speaker with various perforations. In this case, remember it's a dual SIM option, but this may vary in other countries, so consider where you're buying it. The device weighs 206 grams and the back features an intriguing material, a blend of fiberglass and graphene. This mix ensures the device is both durable and cool to the touch, and it can also become. To top it off, when it comes to resistance, we will encounter IP66 in addition to IP68 and IP69, which means it should be quite resistant to water. In fact, the manufacturer even includes an underwater photography mode. This feature somewhat invites you to use your phone underwater. However, when you activate this mode, the manufacturer issues a warning stating that the usage limit is between 0 and 2 meters deep. Furthermore, it should be no more than 30 minutes per session, and temperature changes should not exceed 5 degrees Celsius. Also, remember, no manufacturer covers. The water damage warranty notes that resistance naturally degrades over time, as with any cell phone. So, I prefer to save this resistance for emergencies or accidents. Here, I have the blue edition, as you can see. The contour surrounding the camera module is presented in a bright polished red shade. This choice gives the device a unique and distinct touch, creating a curious combination that's not often seen in the smartphone market. Additionally, it is available in a sleek black edition as well. Besides the edition, the screen features a unique Aston Martin collection resolution, available in select markets but not in Mexico, so we display this phone here to give it a cool appearance. Let's go talk about the screen that has a diagonal 678 inches. It's a really very large screen, but as I told you, the bezels are ultra reduced, so the cell phone actually does not amount so much to a size that it cannot hold comfortably. The screen has a resolution of 1.5K, specifically is a 1264 x 2780 pixels, reaching a density of 450 pixels per inch. So the level of detail that shows us this screen is really very good. The proportion is natural, and we will find in terms of its AMOLED technology with very intense colors as we are already used to in this type of screens. It definitely doesn't disappoint here at all. In fact, it will offer several levels of color calibration depending on the setting you prefer. For example, the natural setting is a bit warmer, or if you go into Pro mode, it will give you a more realistic color reproduction. It even provides the ability for you to adjust using RGB sliders. Additionally, there are other sliders available for tint, saturation, and gain adjustments. This makes it an incredibly versatile display. Moreover, there are additional special modes included, such as one named Cinematic, which utilizes the display P mode to achieve a slightly more realistic color reproduction. There's also another mode known as Bright, which will enhance the color saturation. Therefore, as a user, you have the complete freedom to select a particular method you prefer for color representation. In fact, it also includes a manual adjustment for the screen's color temperature, similar to many other cell phones. However, it also features Adaptive Tone, which is an automatic adjustment of the screen's color temperature. This means that in warm light settings, the screen will appear slightly more yellow, while in cold light settings, it will appear a bit bluer, making it look more or less natural. It's not 100% accurate, but it's another tool included in this phone, which is uncommon for its range. So, we could say it has a superior screen compared to competitors, as it reaches peak brightness. When you're watching HDR content, the display can reach up to 6000 nits. Even if you're outside in sunlight without HDR, you'll still enjoy a perfect viewing experience on this display of all content. But as we discuss HDR, in this instance, the photos you take with this phone utilize Pro XDR technology to enhance brightness in specific areas, providing a more lifelike experience. On the pictures, you can also definitely make the most out of it on platforms like Instagram and YouTube, and even enjoy it on Netflix, especially with Dolby Vision, depending on which movies offer that feature. This ensures that your viewing experience will be absolutely incredible, similar to using a high-end premium device. Additionally, the lower brightness setting is another crucial aspect to consider. In my opinion, it adjusts quite well to be low enough for a comfortable viewing experience during the evenings. We must consider that it also has a very high rate of attenuation, that is 2160 Hz, to avoid the maximum flicker that could be perceived by some people when using the screen in low brightness. Here it would be practically imperceptible, although it does not have the extra attenuation mode. Among the accessibility options that are the most popular, the new technology extends beyond just being a cell phone technology. There's that pending issue to consider, but for visual comfort, it thoughtfully includes options like bedtime mode, allowing the screen to automatically adjust its color tone. It also includes a feature known as eye care, utilizing artificial intelligence to sense eye fatigue. This AI-driven option adjusts the color temperature in real time, making the screen slightly warmer if it determines that your eyes are already quite tired. This intelligent adaptation helps reduce strain on your eyes. You have the option to manually activate these eye care modes, which even offer a paper-like texture to give the screen a more natural appearance. Additionally, you can change the entire screen to black and white, making it evident that this display is going to be truly impressive. Furthermore, it features a refresh rate of 120 Hz, as anticipated, allowing it to present extremely fluid and exceptionally smooth movements. When it comes to the sound, you'll discover a stereo setup featuring a speaker located at the bottom and another one positioned in the upper area. This upper speaker has a dual output, one through the frame and another through the headphone area. You should be aware that the sound quality is well balanced overall. The secondary speaker, while not as weak as some other choices, doesn't truly excel in terms of sophisticated audio quality. Let's just say that the quality is on par with what you would typically expect in this price range. However, unlike the screen, we do not find anything premium transferred to this category, especially when considering that while it does have reality audio technology which somewhat replaces Dolby Atmos, in this situation, it will not provide us access to a custom equalizer. This is unless we are using headphones. Therefore, we cannot modify the sound of the speakers. Let's take a moment to listen to a brief test. Even though it's not quite the same as experiencing it live, it still gives us a sense of what it's like. Additionally, there is an option for spatial audio, but it is exclusively available when you are using headphones. This feature is somewhat duplicated within the hollow audio function, which also enables you to experience a kind of surround sound. Fortunately, this cell phone provides the ability to control the volume of each application separately. This is ideal if you have multiple things playing simultaneously, which is becoming more common, though not all manufacturers have integrated this feature yet. Keep in mind it lacks a headphone jack, so you'll need USB Type-C or wireless headphones. If music is your priority, there's good news. It supports the LHDC codec, along with aptX and DLD for high-resolution audio in these headphones. Now, let's discuss the microphones. It has 3. Let's hear a test.
Esta es una grabación de audio realizada con los micrófonos integrados del realme GT7.
Obviously, the audio is going to be picked up sufficiently well. Keep in mind that in this situation, it also features a clear voice mode, which is intended to cancel out noise during calls. However, to be honest, it doesn't always function as expected. Now, let's listen to how these microphones perform in an environment that is significantly noisier. As you observed, it adjusts its gain exceptionally well to prevent any sort of distortions, ensuring excellent performance in this regard. Moreover, in this section, the device is equipped with a haptic motor located on the X-axis, which also features intensity adjustments, providing a premium experience. This is a robust vibration motor, which is utilized very effectively within the system. Even when you adjust the brightness using that slider, it provides you with exceptionally premium feedback while scrolling through the list of recent apps and various other items. Additionally, while typing, you'll definitely notice that the feel in the hand is remarkably good. And the front camera of the cell phone features a 32 megapixel resolution with an f-aperture of 2.4. It has a fixed focus and utilizes a Sony IMX6115 sensor. To swiftly access the camera, you can use the shortcut of double pressing the volume down button when the device is locked. Additionally, there are other possible shortcuts such as drawing a number 1 or similar gestures with the screen off. However, with the screen on, by default, there isn't a gesture available to perform this action. In the settings, you can choose to open the camera by pressing the power button twice. The front camera offers good agility in photography, though burst mode isn't available. There are 2 amplitude levels and a button for additional lighting effects, which I personally dislike because they make the camera appear smudged. Next, we will explore color filters that we can preview at the same time and also discover beauty effects with automatic or manual adjustments. We can modify and adjust the intensity of each parameter. There are numerous parameters to alter every feature of your face and its shape if you want to look very artificial. At the top, we will also find a button to activate the live photo option. This allows you to have a kind of short video clip while taking your picture, and you can play it using this button. In this instance, it doesn't have multiple playback effects or anything similar. For easy capturing, you have the option to tap on any area of the screen as if it were the shutter, or you can show the palm of your hand, which can definitely be quite useful in various situations. You could also press one of the volume buttons. The results with this front camera will not be as truly spectacular. It somewhat lacks contrast, even though it maintains a decent level of detail. However, in terms of color and contrast, it doesn't appear so spectacular. Fortunately, it has sufficient width to provide a broad framing. In backlit photos, you can notice that the preview isn't fully optimized, and while the result is decent in terms of balancing light and shadow, it still lacks adequate contrast. Therefore, the photograph doesn't really stand out significantly. The front camera performs well, and I believe it won't disappoint anyone, but it's certainly not as appealing as some of the other impressive features on this phone. At night, you'll observe that it lacks the same level of detail as it does during the daytime. However, it really does make a commendable effort to recover those details. When you're positioned in front of a decent light source, I believe the outcome would be exceptionally good. Moreover, even in backlit scenarios, I find the performance to be impressively good. If you become overly demanding, you might start to notice that the noise removal appears somewhat artificial. However, the reality is that as long as you don't zoom in excessively, the image quality remains quite good, like a lime. Additionally, you have the option to use the screen as a flash simulation, which can help illuminate your face better and assist the cell phone in some way. In this regard, it performs quite well, even when taking night portrait shots. The results are surprisingly impressive. This device is one that generally doesn't offer much to complain about. However, one thing to note is that it struggles to maintain focus on objects in the foreground, which stands out as one of its few shortcomings. Overall, when it comes to front portrait photography, the quality may not be very high. At the rear, there are 3 cameras. First, a 16mm ultra-wide camera with f2.2 aperture and fixed focus using an 8MP sensor. Next, the main 24mm camera with f1.8 aperture and autofocus using a Sony IMX906 sensor of 50MP with optical stabilization. It's a competitive, high-quality camera for this price. And finally, we do find the telephoto camera of 47mm. So it features approximately a 2x zoom with an f2.0 aperture. It also includes autofocus capabilities and utilizes a Samsung JN5 sensor. It's a camera with 50 megapixels, which means it doesn't offer a lot of optical zoom. However, by utilizing the high-resolution sensor it possesses, we might achieve some interesting outcomes. Additionally, we'll notice excellent agility while taking photos. If we press and hold the shutter, we can initiate a burst mode that captures images at up to 50 megapixels. If you're taking pictures, it spawns quickly when you press the shutter, making it good for action shots. Regarding the burst mode, it takes over half a second to initiate, and there's a noticeable gap between each photo. It's not particularly fast, so it might fall short in speed. Like the rear camera, we have various lighting effects, color filters, and beauty options, but here with just one slider. At the top, we find the color rendering settings are designed to enhance your photography experience. You can choose from different settings, such as the one called Sharp, which is perfect for capturing details with precision. Another option is the Vibrant setting, which slightly increases brightness, adding a lively touch to your photos. A feature I really appreciate is that by clicking here, you can access additional photography profiles. These include options like scenery, silhouette, and fireworks tailored for specific scenarios. These profiles are particularly useful because the automatic mode might struggle a bit more than expected in these situations. And by selecting the appropriate profile, you can achieve better results and capture the essence of each scene with greater accuracy. So the truth is, photography would be much simpler here. Furthermore, we also have the button for exposure compensation located right on the top, which can be extremely helpful in various scenarios where the automatic rendering might not be sufficient. Now that's correct. By touching the screen, you can also adjust both the exposure and focus, and there is a button to lock it. Alternatively, you can enter the professional mode where you have access to even more parameters, including ISO, which can go up to 3200. The shutter speed can be adjusted to allow for an exposure time of up to 30 seconds. Additionally, you have the ability to modify the exposure compensation. Lastly, it's also possible to manipulate both the focus and the white balance settings. In fact, you also have the option to take pictures in RAW format if you're interested in developing the pictures in a more advanced manner. On the other hand, when it comes to scanning documents, it's necessary to specifically switch to a document scanner mode. In this mode, the ultra-wide camera cannot be used. However, it's important to note that it can intelligently recognize the shape of the document and crop it accordingly, although in this particular example, it wasn't able to perform this task very well. Fortunately, it appears that you can add pages, but in my opinion, it doesn't seem to detect figures very intelligently. So we might say that it functions more like a basic scanner rather than an advanced one. However, during my second attempt, it did manage to recognize a figure and applied the crop successfully. Additionally, you have the ability to apply black and white effects, which makes it resemble a more sophisticated scanner. You also have options to rotate the pages, and then you can save them either as a PDF or as individual images. On the other hand, for QR codes, note that you'll have immediate detection from the main camera interface. It also offers a feature called Landscape with AI, which aims to frame and straighten photos correctly while optimizing colors. Additionally, it includes other photography modes that create blur effects on the edges, and a special mode for capturing stars in such environments. Let's check the results. Here we have the ultra-wide camera. It obviously won't provide the same high level of detail as the main camera, but considering its category, I believe it performs well. One thing I appreciate is that it tries to maintain a color rendition that is similar to the main camera. It may not be exactly the same, but it certainly makes a commendable effort. The main camera, of course, will deliver a higher level of detail and is capable of handling very well its cabbage quality. And now we jump to the telephoto camera that is just with 2x zoom. I think in that sense they have been left to awe, especially because 2x you could easily reach it by cropping solely within the sensor itself. In this short distance zoom we observe excellent quality and a high level of detail. The advantage here is the high resolution sensor, which maintains a great level of detail even at a 5x zoom. Now we are going to notice that it keeps a very good quality, not completely 100% optical, but it does look quite well. Look here, we have another gallery. This is a photo taken with the main camera, then with 2x zoom for a 47mm perspective, and then with 5x zoom, where once again the level of detail is truly spectacular. Now when we look at our regular environment once more, we notice that the ultra-wide camera does a pretty good job. There's almost no distortion at the edges or anything major to worry about. Additionally, the main camera performs admirably, and as I previously mentioned, when we zoom up to 5x, we observe nearly optical quality for a core zoom, and medium distance with very good quality. The device reaches a maximum zoom of 20 times, which is obviously digital, and I believe it is quite good. Even up to 10 times, which is the picture you are currently looking at, it appears very good. Although of course it struggles a bit more with the finer details. The maximum zoom, as I had anticipated for you, is 20x. You can notice that it's somewhat forced in the last part. However, overall, I believe it's a good feature, especially considering the price range in which it competes. Here you have a final carousel of the photographs applying zoom. This way you can observe how the device performs spectacularly up to 5x. At 10x, it still maintains very good quality for its category. At 20x, which is the maximum, the details are not as clear, but I insist for its category it is quite acceptable. It is yet another picture with the maximum zoom of 20x. To give you a better perspective, here is 10x. 5x looks stunning in detail and the main camera's zoom range. Honestly, considering the price, I find it to be very good. When it comes to backlit scenes, it's important to note that the preview appears to be well optimized, and the results are quite positive as well. With the ultra-wide camera, we observe something good, although there is a slight chromatic aberration. However, the truth is that it is not very noticeable at all, particularly when compared to similar devices. The primary camera enhances contrast in these conditions, ensuring high-quality photos with an outstanding level of detail. Even when using the telephoto camera, this positive photography experience is maintained, especially in backlit situations and at night, where the results remain impressive. It's important to note that it effectively exposes brighter areas while keeping the darker areas adequately dark, providing a balanced and pleasing image. The main camera performs spectacularly by increasing color saturation slightly, although it may encounter some challenges in darker areas, which is expected for its range. Overall, I find the photography to be of very high quality. Even the telephoto camera performs well, thanks to its excellent aperture, which is definitely an advantage. I believe the aperture could be bigger, and even at 5x zoom, the result is excellent. I especially like how it handles the zones at night. The camera isn't very bright, but it delivers a good result. However, it clearly assumes that at night, we won't achieve the same level of detail with the 5x zoom as we see during the day. I already mentioned that the device includes an integrated ultra-wide camera, which is excellent for capturing wide shots, especially when taking panoramic pictures. We'll see it lacks the desired level of detail, so this is an aspect that could definitely improve, as panoramic photographs will be very simple. However, for macro photography it behaves well. Note that if you try to zoom in this case, it will not use the telephoto camera. The primary camera is what will be used, so when zooming in at 5x, the quality won't match what we observe at longer distances, as it doesn't utilize the telephoto lens. When it comes to action photography, the device performs admirably with any of its cameras. The ultra-wide camera handles well-lit environments without any issues, and the main camera also delivers excellent quality. Even the telephoto camera performs quite well in these scenes. However, when using the 5x zoom, we begin to notice that the results are slightly blurred and lack some quality. When it comes to portrait photography, it's important to note that the main camera performs admirably. It detects depth accurately and applies a proper blur, enhancing the overall image quality. The telephoto camera offers us a more professional perspective, adding a bit more contrast, which enhances the quality even further. One thing I wish to point out is that it would be great if it allowed us to take portrait photos with a longer focal length. Unfortunately, in this instance, it does not provide that option, and as you can observe, it lacks full depth detection capabilities. Perfect, there are certain areas that might not appear well when out of focus, but overall I believe it is a device that is quite capable of capturing good pictures using this telephoto camera. In portrait mode, for instance, notice how we achieve excellent hair detection, which is often quite challenging. Hence, the way it handles this situation is quite favorable. For video recording, we can record in 4K at 30 frames per second, which is surprisingly good for this price range. It's impressive. Or you could even record in 4K at 120 frames per second. Both of these settings reserved for the main camera only, but even with the telephoto camera you could go as far as 4K at 60 frames per second. In the video recording interface, note that we also have the button to adjust the compensation. Exposure by hand. There's another button for a list of color filters compatible only with full HD resolution. And we have a facial retouch button which won't be supported in 4K, and the depth effect button, a slider that will also not be compatible with 4K resolution. Once you begin recording a video, you will observe that there is a slider available for us. Convenient to move the zoom, also a button to take pictures, another button to pause and resume recording, and one more button to turn on and off the flashlight. In this particular case, it does not permit us to rotate the front camera without having to stop recording the video. Interestingly enough, it also includes these manual modes for capturing scenarios or fireworks with a more precise exposure. Additionally, we will be able to access the pellicula mode, where the device shows us a little bit more manual parameters when we are recording the video. Now let's check the results. You're now viewing in 4K at 60 frames per second, and it's incredibly smooth. We can even zoom while recording. Typically, you'll record in 4K at 30 frames per second, and you can see part of its quality here. I believe it will deliver good results, and the colors are visible. The image has good contrast, and as I mentioned, if we switch to the telephoto camera while recording in 4K, it continues to maintain the same color rendering, resulting in an overall positive performance. The downside here is that the ultra-wide camera is unable to record in 4K, which is a significant drawback for this device. Overall, it has few weaknesses, yet this particular limitation stands out more prominently. Fortunately, if you choose to record in full HD, you have the ability to switch between the ultra-wide camera, the main camera, and then the telephoto camera. Therefore, if you wish to experience the complete zoom range, you must record in full HD, and at this price range, I believe it falls short. Curiously, the cell phone lets us record up to K at 30 frames per second. This is useful for cropping and zooming in post-production, but honestly the video quality isn't great. In backlit scenarios, the ultra-wide camera shows a lot of chromatic aberration with purple edges on some objects. Although it balances lights and shadows quite well with the main camera, we will notice that the performance is indeed very impressive in these types of scenarios. There are no aggressive changes in lighting, nor are there any burnt or overexposed areas, which means it records with good quality. With the telephoto camera, however, there might be a few more overexposed areas in the background, but the truth is it still delivers a good result overall. By the way, this device also offers the ability to record using a special HDR mode. This feature enhances the balance between lights and shadows, which was already quite good to be honest. However, with the HDR mode activated, I noticed that the colors appear slightly different. I believe you can decide which option you prefer, especially during the evenings. As for the ultra-wide camera, once again it demonstrates that it is not particularly strong in performance. The level of detail is rather low due to the limited light intake it receives, although it does manage to control noise fairly well. However, I believe the main camera performs significantly better. Notice that it provides a great definition with a high level of detail. You can see an image with excellent contrast, and even the brightest areas are not entirely overexposed. Thus, it performs well when recording in these dimly lit environments. Actually, since the launch took place in Paris, we had the chance to shoot a brief video there. Observer manages illuminated areas well, though zooming can vary. The telephoto camera performs well at night too. Here's another example. The telephoto camera struggles with bright areas but keeps good light in dark areas. I must emphasize that it is indeed assisted by the f2 aperture, which is sufficiently bright for a telephoto camera. It's important to note that even in the darkest areas, there will still be a good amount of light coming in. As for the 4K stabilization, in truth, it isn't extremely advanced. You will notice some of the steps while walking, and when you are running, you will clearly notice more of the vibration and these compensating movements. With the telephoto camera, you are definitely going to notice these kinds of movements even more, naturally, because it has a greater amount of zoom applied. And however, even with the ultra-wide camera, the truth is that the stabilization is not particularly spectacular. I believe that in this regard, there is room for improvement because it doesn't appear to be anything remarkable. Although in this case, it includes an ultra-steady mode that you can enable. The resolution is set to full HD at 60 frames per second, and it still doesn't appear to have a very impressive focus. Take note that it reacts and adjusts both quickly and nimbly, as well as accurately enough in fast movements and even in more subtle movements. To fully take advantage of the complete zoom range, it's necessary to record in full HD, allowing you to utilize the ultra-wide camera. I had previously mentioned that switching between all the cameras is possible. However, in this case, the maximum zoom is 18x. It definitely doesn't appear naturally detailed, and the absence of stabilization affects the quality. Too much? So it won't perform well for zoom recording. This is another one of its obvious weaknesses. If you record in 4K, you cannot use the ultra-wide camera, and the performance is almost the same, with 18x as the maximum zoom level. However, it has a very low detail level and, most importantly, lacks stabilization. For slow motion, there are several options available. In this case, you are watching in 4K at 120 frames per second, which is something not all devices support. So it can become quite attractive. yet you don't see a level of detail that matches 4K. You also have the option to record in Full HD at this same frame rate. However, if you're aiming for slower motion, you can choose to record in HD at up to 240 frames per second. Yet once again, you'll notice the video quality is low. Honestly, it doesn't appear very appealing, as if the bit rate is too low. When it comes to fast motion mode, you'll discover that 15 times is the most basic speed available without stabilization, but luckily it's in 4K and can also reach 1920 times, allowing you to record. It's much more visually appealing if you keep the cell phone still, as it functions like a fast camera. Better focus for these scenarios. This device also enables us to record video in portrait mode with a blurred background. I believe the result is quite satisfactory if you remain static. However, be aware that as soon as there is any movement, it begins to get confused and fails to maintain a consistent edge detection experience. Therefore, it is recommended to stay very still for these types of captures. Fortunately, it appears that, at times, when you keep certain objects in focus, particularly when you are holding them in your hand, the outcome can be quite satisfactory if you take this into account. By concentrating on these aspects, you may find that the results will be better than expected. The front camera records in a very simple way. With low contrast, a somewhat poor color rendition, it offers 2 levels of amplitude. But it is not so much difference between one and the other, and even in backlit environments, we will not find a very positive result. Notice, for example, how on a cloudy day where perhaps the illumination is not so intense directly towards the face, it is also going to be very bright. When moving around, you'll notice a somewhat less advanced result with a slight shake, which makes the front camera one of the weaker aspects of this device. At night, we notice colors are slightly paler, and in darker areas, it tries to reduce noise while keeping a good level of detail. Fortunately, it's not too bad for night recording. Also, it includes portrait mode for the front camera, allowing you to blur the background. The background, even if it does keep in focus objects you're holding in your hand, so the result I think can be good enough. Although it obviously doesn't keep in focus objects you are not holding, plus it still looks pale in color and low in contrast. However, even though it might not perfectly keep in focus the objects you're not holding, the outcome can still be acceptable. Additionally, it appears pale in color and lacks contrast. You also have access to a quick camera mode, which functions similarly to what we observed with the rear camera. Additionally, there is a dual recording mode available that allows you to use both the rear and front cameras simultaneously. It's important to note that this box can be moved across the screen, although there is a limit on the right side. It also maintains autofocus and provides the ability to apply zoom, offering good versatility within this mode. You might also opt to switch to a circular picture-in-picture mode if you prefer this arrangement, as it maintains the same behavior. Additionally, you have the option to switch between cameras, but you must stop recording the video first. This means you can't switch cameras dynamically without interrupting the video recording. Finally, there's a split screen mode available if you want both cameras to have the same size, zoom, and autofocus behavior. However, if you wish to change the position of these cameras, you'll need to stop the recording and then start it again. Regarding the software, this device comes with Android 15 and realme UI in its 6th version. The manufacturer promises you 4 years of software updates and 6 years of security patches. It's not the most advanced in the industry, but I think it complements the device very well, which is already quite balanced and quite appealing due to some remarkable features we will discover. One of these is flow themes, which will enable us to set up our device with a magazine-style wallpaper. It includes various typographies and depth detection, as you can see, so that only a portion of the background appears over the letters, providing an intriguing touch. In this particular case, there are multiple default styles available that you can further customize and adjust to achieve the specific effect or outcome you desire. You want to do this, and in fact, you can actually apply additional blur effects or even class effect styles on top of it too. Regarding your backgrounds, the level of customization is impressively high for both the wallpaper and the lock screen. Naturally, there are numerous options available to select from, allowing you to begin personalizing. Additionally, there is an online theme store where you can download even more styles for customization. We are also going to find the display that's always on. Continuing on, please note that it actually has two. One classic and one fluid. In fluid, you'll notice a transition between the lock screen and the always on display cover. Also note that by default, it is configured with a power saving mode. However, you can choose if you prefer the screen to remain on continuously, constantly, unlike devices with simpler modes. You can also ask to turn on when you receive new notifications, and obviously you have several covers also to select. We will also find the edge lighting function that will project a light effect on the sides of the device whenever you receive a notification or a call on the main screen. In this particular case, I would like to remind you that we will also find various options within the settings. For instance, you can choose whether or not to have an app drawer. Additionally, there is a gesture available to scroll through the icons displayed on the screen. You have the option to set the background to swipe downwards. This makes it easier for you to reach them. Alternatively, if you prefer, you can double tap on an empty space to turn off the screen. And, well, you also have the ability to adjust the speed of the animations and decide if you prefer to have translucent transparency effects enabled or not. Additionally, for the lock screen, there are some other options available if you wish for the background to change continuously. It also lets you modify animations and transitions. Generally, customization is beneficial. Here, swiping down by default opens a universal browser on your phone. However, you can choose to open the shelf instead, which is a kind of... The smart panel includes a variety of unique widgets. These are not your typical system widgets. Instead, they are custom designed widgets tailored specifically for this particular area. For this area, even though Spotify offers its own widget, which looks quite nice, however, on the home screen, you have the option to add various system widgets as well. Generally speaking, the quick settings screen is separate from the notification screen, although you do have the ability to edit it. All of this is to choose if you prefer them to be combined with the classic style. Keep in mind that in this situation you also have the split screen tool available in case you wish to open two applications simultaneously. Additionally, there's this option called Maximize, which maintains the split screen. This means with just one touch, you can easily switch back to this view. However, for quick tasks or if you want to view content in a larger size, this can be particularly useful. Consider utilizing this option, otherwise you have the choice to transition entirely to full screen mode in order to close the split view. And naturally, from the sidebar, you can run apps in floating window mode. Be aware that it supports up to 2 apps open simultaneously in this format. You can resize and position these apps as desired. Even YouTube and Instagram are compatible with this floating mode, and as you can see, you can minimize them into small bubbles. And from the sidebar, we are also going to discover some additional tools that we can take advantage of, such as temporary file storage, which acts like a small floating clipboard. In addition, we have direct access to recent files. For instance, from this sidebar, we could easily drag and drop a photo into an email to attach it more quickly. Therefore, it can be quite useful for these kinds of scenarios. We'll also find tools here like screenshot and more. One-handed mode doesn't. Because it only shrinks vertically, it features the usual 3-finger swipe down for screenshots. It also supports long screenshots to show more content than it can display. You can choose to delete the original image if edited, or if extracting content deletes that screenshot. If you like, you can also press 3 fingers on the screen to capture a screenshot of a specific section. And naturally, from the editor, it's important to remember that you have the option to censor certain content and similar things. Additionally, it offers the capability to use gestures when the screen is off, allowing you to draw specific letters or symbols to launch particular applications. Furthermore, you can turn the flashlight on or off using the volume button when the screen is off, which serves as a very convenient shortcut to easily enable this feature whenever needed. Clearly, the screen must be off. If it's on, it won't work. There are also gestures to automatically turn the screen on. Or you can just bring the cell phone close to your ear to answer calls without needing to press any buttons or anything similar. It also includes a feature known as drag and drop, which is compatible with multiple applications. For example, you can see how you can press and hold on an item, then drag it to an edge of the screen to instantly share the content within an application. This serves as a method to make the process more efficient and quicker. In addition, we have the support sphere, which is a small floating menu. You can operate it with simple taps, or if you prefer, you can enable a pop-up menu. Moreover, it includes the motorcycle mode, which activates based on your location. Note that it provides a simplified view, showing only the player, maps, and not much else. Furthermore, the Sense Space feature is available, designed to help you relax and disconnect for a while. You have the ability to choose which specific applications will be permitted when these modes are activated. Additionally, you can determine the duration for which you want these modes to remain active. This session. Additionally, there's a simple mode available which provides a much larger interface featuring easy-to-read text and buttons. It also includes air gesture recognition, allowing you to, for instance, answer calls or scroll within certain applications. To enable this feature, simply access the application and use the sidebar to turn it on. This option allows me to place my hand on top and navigate through different contents both upwards and downwards. It's quite helpful, for instance, if your hands are wet or if you're eating and prefer not to touch your phone while navigating through all these contents. Additionally, we'll explore the power button settings. This is important because if you press it twice, you have the option to choose whether you'd like to access the access cards. These cards allow you to add NFC tags, provided they are encrypted. Alternatively, you might prefer to open the camera. Furthermore, if you hold down the button, you can make a selection between accessing the power menu or launching a voice assistant. This provides flexibility in how you use your device. Interestingly, it also includes a dedicated RAM section specifically for games. You can activate it so that various games are stored in cache, which means they won't take as long to start the next time you play them. Additionally, there's a section with some experimental features. These include an option to listen using both Bluetooth headphones and wired headphones, as well as an option to measure your heart rate using the fingerprint reader. Finally, press and hold in the gallery to use them as stickers. If you choose some individuals or objects, you have the option to save them separately or add them as a sticker. However, it's important to note that these stickers will only be functional within the photo editor, and they are not stickers that you can utilize outside of this specific environment. It's different from the keyboard used in other applications, however, for editing in this manner, it might still be effective. When you select multiple photos, you have the option to create a collage or even an animated GIF. Additionally, by using Google Lens, you can extract text or gather some information from these photos. When it comes to the functions of artificial intelligence, I have already created a dedicated video for you. In that video, you can explore all the features that these devices provide. In this particular case, it also includes AI Studio. There is intelligent screen recognition available. Additionally, the intelligent loop that I demonstrated earlier will be there too. However, something new is that now you can tap the screen twice at the back and it will perform an intelligent scan of your screen. And if you're observing a certain event, for instance, it will quickly offer you the option to add it to your calendar. This feature could be quite useful, although it does take a bit of time. Personally, I would rather use voice commands to add that event to the calendar or something similar, because you'll notice that the time it takes is rather long, so it doesn't end up being a very comfortable assistant. Additionally, it will only function. In English, you're constantly observing the time it takes for yourself. I wanted to create this video without any cuts so that you can specifically notice it, and that's all there is to it. Now, we can go ahead and add it to the calendar. Naturally, it also includes a tool that allows you to transcribe voice memos and generate summaries from them. Additionally, within the Notes application, we can find these artificial intelligence tools that help give the text a different format, polish it, and elaborate more on the content. These features can be quite useful for various tasks. You can additionally generate summaries or AI readings of the web pages you are currently visiting through this sidebar. Moreover, it includes a tool for generating responses using artificial intelligence for emails or WhatsApp, for instance. So, with just a single touch, you could easily generate these responses. It also features its own document application where you have various other tools to help summarize, translate, or even convert documents directly to PDF. Inside the gallery, you have AI editing options. Similar to the traditional eraser, you can enhance the image resolution, sharpen the image, or eliminate glare when taking photos through glass. Now, it also includes two additional options, one of which is brightness remover with AI. To be honest, I don't find it particularly useful. It merely reduces the image brightness slightly, and that's all. I haven't yet encountered any situation where it proves to be genuinely beneficial. It'll help. And the next feature is landscape with AI. Once again, I don't find it extremely useful as it primarily optimizes the contrast and similar aspects. However, there might be some utility in using it for photos taken with the front camera, which, as I mentioned earlier, aren't of the best quality. So, when you use this AI landscape feature, you'll notice that it does help in optimizing the contrast a bit more, resulting in a slightly better quality photo overall. But, well, those are two new features. The rest of the features I describe in the dedicated video that I leave you in the description so you can go to consult and examine it in depth. All the artificial intelligence capabilities and functions that this device offers. Furthermore, we also have Circle to Search from Google, which allows you to hold down and enclose text in a symbol or something similar. If you're looking to gather more information, you can also use Circle to Search to translate the contents of the screen or to select text that typically cannot be selected. To activate, press and hold the navigation bar, and in fact it would additionally allow you to search for songs that are currently playing, and like all Android devices, it also integrates. From Google, Gemini is able to have this smart assistant is enabled by holding the button, and you can make queries through text and audio. Don't forget that you have the option to share your screen or even your camera with Gemini for a more advanced conversation. This is a feature available on all devices, so feel free to use it whenever you need. With Android, for enhanced security, you'll discover a fingerprint reader embedded within the screen. In this instance, it's optical, meaning it activates a bright light to facilitate the recognition process. Additionally, it doesn't operate as quickly as the ultrasonic models. However, in its category, this is what we would typically anticipate, and it performs well. Moreover, it supports up to a maximum of 5 registrations, which is expected. And since it is integrated within the screen, it enables us to modify the animation to choose the one we desire. Furthermore, we even have also includes the quick launch shortcut. This shortcut is a feature that lets you swipe through various shortcuts. By swiping to the desired shortcut and then releasing your finger, you can successfully enter and use that shortcut. Enter. It only has basic two-dimensional face unlocking, not very secure, but it does have smart notification hiding to keep others from seeing your notifications if it detects, which is another side. You will attempt to block those actions. Additionally, it includes a payment protection system designed to somehow prevent any type of USB command from executing, as it detects your payment to prevent attacks, and includes application lock, letting us restrict app access using our fingerprint or a unique pattern different from the lock screen. It also offers an option to hide apps. It can clone apps from the home screen and lets us set a specific fingerprint to unlock and directly access these apps. Additionally, it includes the private save feature, which allows you to securely store any type of image, video, or file you deem private. Moreover, it features the cloner system tool, enabling the use of two distinct lock patterns, essentially giving you the functionality of two separate phones in one device, each with its own set of applications and files. Furthermore, it offers an application cloner option as well. It's an excellent tool, especially when you're using it for social networking or messaging apps. Moreover, it even lets you use it in other applications, enabling you to have two instances running on the same phone. Additionally, it offers another feature that attempts to block base stations attempting to intercept your calls or messages. Moreover, it includes anti-theft functions. For instance, the cell phone will sound an alarm if someone unplugs it from the charger or removes the headphones. Thus, it serves as a great tool for those who often leave their phone on a table or similar surface while it is charging. Actually, you can't stop it from shutting down easily when someone attempts to steal it or something similar. Additionally, it includes the kids mode, allowing you to choose which applications will be accessible when you hand this phone to a child. Moreover, you can set the screen to either grayscale or activate an eye protection mode. Furthermore, you will have the option to assign time limits for usage, ensuring a comprehensive and satisfactory experience in this aspect. Finally, it also integrates collaboration with Avast within its security application for a malware scan, which is additional to the protection that Google offers you through Play Protect. And of course, being an Android, it also includes many other tools developed by Google to protect the cell phone found in all Android phones, so it's not unique to this model. If you want to know all the features, the link is in the description. Let's discuss the battery, as it boasts an impressive capacity of 7 mAh. Initially, it sounds like something entirely spectacular. However, let's proceed to the tests. Attempting to discharge a cell phone as quickly as possible using a draining application. In this situation, it only lasted for 4 hours and 46 minutes. This isn't bad when compared to cell phones with 5000 mAh batteries. In fact, it would be slightly above average, offering around 15 minutes more than what you would typically expect from a 5000 mAh battery. So it's clearly not a terrible battery, especially with 7000 mAh capacity. We would envision a performance that could extend to around 6 hours or something along those lines. Additionally, in the background drain test, the time didn't increase significantly, reaching just a bit over 5 hours. While this isn't catastrophic, it indicates that the optimization isn't very efficient. Applications continue running in the background, so ideally, you should keep any apps you're not actively using closed to prevent your battery from draining too rapidly. Finally, when we tested playing YouTube videos with the screen brightness set at 50%, this device managed to run for about 18 hours and 10 minutes, give or take. While this isn't a bad result, we had higher expectations considering its 7000 mAh battery. We anticipated it would last for at least over 20 hours. Unfortunately, it significantly underperformed in that aspect. So, it's important to note that, in terms of performance, it delivers results more akin to a 5000 mAh battery. In this regard, there's nothing particularly remarkable about it. Anyway, it additionally includes the feature of an integrated battery saving mode, normal mode, as well as the ultra saving mode, which can be beneficial in certain situations, such as when you need to finish the day or during emergencies. And it helps by restricting more activities depending on which mode you choose to activate. Additionally, this cell phone is capable of supporting 100% charging, 120 watts. Now about the charger. In the box, there's a 120 watts adapter that looks great. Very powerful, but our test chart shows it maxed at 61W, so consider it as if it had a 65W charger. As you realize, the figures for both battery and charging power can be a bit misleading. However, it doesn't mean that it charges slowly. In 15 minutes, it got up to 41. In just 30 minutes, it managed to reach up to 72%, and the full charge was completed in 47 minutes, which means it charges incredibly fast. I truly think that with daily charging sessions of 30 minutes, I can get it charged very quickly. You will have enough, depending on your user type. However, you can also enable a quick charge mode to observe how in the initial few minutes it manages to sustain a slightly higher power. Consequently, within just 15 minutes it reached half of the battery capacity, which is already very prominent, and in 30 minutes it reached the 80%, and then again it slows down somewhat and becomes a bit slower, eventually reaching 100% in about 43 minutes. However, regardless of this, the charging process will still be extremely fast. Consider nothing else that does not have wireless charging, although it is not something common in the range, but one or another device, especially from Motorola, could come to offer this option. What it does have here is smart charging, so that in case you prefer to leave it charging all night, it charges much slower. Or also the 80% charging lock mode in case you do not need to have this cell phone plugged into the current at all times. I like that you can check the maximum battery capacity if buying this phone used to see if it's still healthy or deteriorated. Few Android makers offer this. The experience is good but disappointing if you read the specs. When it comes to connectivity, it is going to provide us with a lot more. GE is available with Wi-Fi 7, so the download speeds are going to be extremely high. It's important to consider that this includes a software mode allowing you to decide which applications can use your mobile data and which ones can only operate on Wi-Fi. However, it's noteworthy that it lacks support for eSIM, which is a significant omission, especially if you're someone who frequently travels. It features Bluetooth version 5.4 and it includes a unique function for making Bluetooth calls to other Realme phones. Additionally, Oppo and OnePlus are manufacturers that share various technologies with each other. It has NFC, so you are able to make mobile payments by adding your cards to Google Pay. However, it does not include FM radio. What it does offer is OTG, allowing you to connect accessories using the USB-C port. Keep in mind, this is a feature you must enable in the settings for it to function properly. However, in this instance, you cannot use certain HDMI adapters via cable since it lacks MHL. To transmit the video signal through this port, you can wirelessly project the screen and use advanced functions to hide notifications. You can project with the screen off to save battery or project an app while multitasking on your phone. They additionally have a sharing feature compatible with both iPhone and computer, which serves as the replacement for O Connect that was available before. To utilize this, you need to install O Plus Connect on either your iPhone or computer, and this allows you to transfer files more easily, even by bringing the cell phone close to an iPhone. However, it's essential to have the application installed. Furthermore, it also integrates with Android Auto seamlessly, whether via cable or wirelessly. And to wrap up this section regarding the sensors, it includes everything you could possibly need: an accelerometer, a geomagnetic field sensor, orientation sensors, plus a gyroscope, and a fully physical proximity sensor. Additionally, it comes with infrared capabilities, allowing you to use this cell phone as a universal remote control. This is a feature that not all cell phones offer, so it should certainly be highlighted as a positive aspect for the ecosystem. In this particular situation, we will discover a substantial number of Realme devices, including headphones, tablets, or watches. Furthermore, they feature the proprietary technology known as Multi-Screen Connect. This technology enables you to connect seamlessly with Oppo or OnePlus devices, allowing them to interact collectively, such as with the tablet, and use it on that specific device. At this point, you have the option to select an add. The new device can also be connected to some computers if you install the appropriate client. However, the setup is manual, which makes it less straightforward compared to other devices that come with a computer from the same brand. It's important to note that in this situation, you could also share files with the iPad. This is possible as long as you install or connect the necessary software to enhance the interaction between devices from different brands. This development is certainly appreciated. It seems the manufacturer has placed significant emphasis on features like screen duplication, clipboard synchronization, direct application control from the computer, and several other options. In fact, it also includes the Windows Link option pre-installed, which allows you to connect your cell phone to your Windows computer with ease, avoiding complex processes. This function is already integrated into all Windows applications. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, it also features the contact interactions option, enabling you to simply bring it closer for easy use to an iPhone, and if you already have the application or Connect installed, you can share files quite easily. Additionally, with compatible laptops from friendly brands, you can link them in that way. Globally, in this case, realme relies more extensively on Google's technologies and services compared to others. For instance, you'll observe that even though the Hey Tap Cloud option is visible, it doesn't actually provide us with storage capabilities. Instead, it only permits us to back up contacts, notes, and a few additional items. For simpler tasks, you have options, but when it comes to backing up your photos, you'll find Google Photos integrated directly into the gallery. This means there's no need to open the Google Photos app separately. Instead, you can configure your account directly from the system gallery. Furthermore, you'll rely on Google for managing your home devices using Google Home. This integration makes it more convenient to handle everything in one place. Even though the manufacturer offers its own app store named App Market, which serves as an alternative to Google Play Store, it still includes Google Play. This means that, in a way, it provides a substitute for Google Play and doesn't feel entirely reliant on Google in that aspect. We're testing the realme GT's performance featuring the MediaTek Dimensity processor. It's built on a 4nm process with a core reaching up to 3.4 Hz, and it includes 12 GB of RAM. Impressive? On average, it took 1.6 seconds to open each app. For this price, it's incredibly powerful. Now let's explore the apps we already have open to see if it truly. The applications are able to continue running smoothly and efficiently due to the substantial amount of physical RAM available. As you can see, this results in no reboots occurring within the apps, and there is an absence of lag or white screens at any given moment. Consequently, the user experience is exceptionally seamless and fluid throughout. Even when multiple applications are open simultaneously, you will notice that the device must not become slow at any point in time. Let's now proceed to test how it scrolls directly within these applications such as Facebook. As you can observe, it doesn't freeze at any moment. Let's now go ahead and test, for instance, on Instagram. And you'll notice that exactly the same thing occurs. It is truly a device that provides an exceptionally good level of fluidity. In addition to the substantial physical RAM, it also offers another 12 GB of virtual RAM. From my perspective, this extra virtual RAM is unnecessary when there's already so much physical RAM available. And I don't see the point in having all this virtual RAM, but nevertheless, the option is there for you if you decide you want to use it. By the way, the processor provides a remarkably high level of power. It's truly incredible what it manages to achieve in this segment. It's quite difficult to find a device that operates this smoothly, even when using Snapchat filters, just to mention one example. For instance, this device truly performs exceptionally well. Regarding storage, there are two options available, 256 or 512 GB. However, you cannot insert a microSD card, so keep that in mind as it is quite significant. Additionally, notice how it offers multiple system cleaning tools. For example, it will recommend deleting burst photos, allowing you to select only the best ones and remove the others. You also have here a specific debugger available for WhatsApp, Instagram and Facebook, and you also have additional options to compress certain apps or combine arch that appear to be duplicates or similar items. So, it seems that it does indeed provide us with useful tools to clean up our system efficiently. However, for those who are more technically inclined, let's test approximately what the speed of this storage is. And notice that it provided us with a reading speed of 37,623 megabytes per second and a writing speed of 34,737 megabytes per second. It is truly incredibly fast, providing us with a storage solution that is not only extremely large but also remarkably fast. Now let's move on to our traditional video export test. This will be done in 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. I want to remind you that these are videos captured using this device, and together they have a total duration of 1 minute. And that's all there is to it. It took less than 15 seconds. It genuinely offers the experience of a flagship device, and seeing it available at this price point is just absolutely spectacular. The gaming experience is going to be truly exceptional. There's a specialized application that lets us quickly browse a list of games that don't need installation, allowing you to enjoy them casually without using up storage space. Additionally, it enables you to discover intriguing content that you can choose to download and install. Lastly, you can view the catalog of games you already have installed. In this case, we can adjust the settings to enable or disable the toolbox. In just a moment, I will demonstrate how you can hide all the icons from the main screen, making them accessible only through this app. Additionally, it features an automatic brightness lock. This feature gives you the capability to adjust the notification style, which I'll demonstrate shortly. Furthermore, with compatible games, it enables devibration. There is also an option to cache games, ensuring they run more quickly the next time you play them. By default, there is an option included that will automatically adjust the screen resolution. This is designed to help consume less battery or regulate the temperature. Additionally, there's a spatial mode available which will block any distractions while you are playing your games. It also includes HDR filters specifically available for PUBG. When you enter a game, you will notice that this sidebar appears with all the tools I have just described to you. Right away, there's a performance profile to save battery or maximize power, plus a direct Spotify widget. At the control, we also discovered a brightness control, and with just a single tap, we can limit any distractions that might occur while we are playing. Additionally, you are already aware that you have the option to modify the notification style. Typically, this bubble appears by default, which, by the way, we can easily interact with it using the buttons that are visible there. However, if you prefer to keep the screen less cluttered, you have the option to choose notifications with bullets. By doing this, you will find that Now, notifications appear as strips moving across the screen, allowing you to continue viewing your game display without too much obstruction. We will additionally discover an artificial intelligence feature called AI Game Trainer. However, we are uncertain about the games it is compatible with, as it doesn't work with Call of Duty. Furthermore, there isn't a specific list of games where you can utilize this feature. Moreover, we have come across the motion control tool, which allows you to simply control by turning your device. Though it lacks touch triggers, it offers more control versatility. By the way, notice that here you can see the counter for frames per second. Well, once you turn on this option, these small buttons appear which you can place above the other virtual buttons. For instance, I will choose that I only want the gesture to tilt in order to reload the gun. So, for example, there I am shooting and then I perform this gesture. Immediately you will notice that this button was enabled. So I think it does give you a nice versatility of additional controls, although I wish it would also allow us to map the volume buttons. Note that another option available is consecutive abilities, which are like macros that you can simply trigger with a single button. To start with, you can select whether at the time of a button press. If you want to press a second button right away, you have 3 buttons that are available. Here you can press edit to choose the position you desire. Afterward, you can press 2 buttons simultaneously. Now, that's one way you can take advantage of it. However, the second method, which I find even more intriguing, is macro recording. Now, notice, for instance, how I can enable this button A. Next, we're going to record a series of steps that I wanted to perform. For example, here it turned and then it fired, and that's it. Although it's a simple recording, it can be extremely useful for executing very complex movements. Additionally, you can select if you wanted to repeat the actions and even choose the speed at which you wanted to carry them out. And now, by simply pressing this button that was floating around here, it will perform the same number of actions that I had previously set up and recorded in advance. This feature offers you some truly amazing options for enhancing your gaming enjoyment. What's more, you have the ability to record 3 distinct macros for each individual game you play. Additionally, there is a direct power option available, allowing you to keep your cell phone connected to the charger. This way, the voltage bypasses the battery, helping you to avoid any issues with overheating. You also have the option of cold blocking, and in this particular case, there's an eye care mode available. However, it will utilize the camera, which means it might consume a bit more resources. Additionally, we discover an advanced settings option that allows us to control the performance of both the CPU and GPU. This means you can specifically adjust the frequency settings, and it includes an option to boost performance, providing us with a more advanced Hyper HDR graphics HDR experience. Finally, you have multiple options available to take screenshots or record your screen. You can also optimize network latency and make the screen respond more quickly. Additionally, you have the ability to lock the screen rotation and save your game in the cache. Moreover, there are color filters available for certain games only, and you also have the option to change your voice. This means you can make it sound deeper or higher pitched, depending on your personal preference. You also have the option to constantly monitor the frames per second, as well as the GPU and CPU usage directly on your screen. Additionally, there is an option that allows the game to remain active with a dim screen to save battery while continuing the download. As you can see, there are numerous options designed specifically for gaming. Moreover, you can open other applications without needing to close your game. The truth is that the software level is quite advanced for enhancing the gaming experience. Before you start watching the gameplays, let me remind you that in this situation, you have the option to set the recording quality of your screen. Additionally, you can adjust the audio input, choosing between the system sounds or the microphone. By default, it comes with HD recording, but you have the ability to increase it to full HD at 16 megabits per second dynamically. You can also adjust the frame rate per second, and it allows you to don't record the notifications, which can be quite useful while you're engaged in a gameplay session. You could even choose to add the front camera, or alternatively opt for an automatic pause feature when you decide to turn off the screen. In Call of Duty, by default, the graphics are set to very high quality at maximum rate. You can increase it to the highest level, but if you choose ultra frame rate, the quality drops to medium. This is similar to a full flagship, offering access to all filters. Of not being a Snapdragon, this chip from MediaTek is the best we're going to find from that manufacturer, and the performance really is excellent, as you realize. Initially, we focused on enhancing the graphics quality, ensuring it maintained an average of 60 frames per second with remarkable stability. The lowest frame rate observed was 55 frames per second, which indicates a very solid experience. This performance was achieved even without significant heating issues, and it's important to note that all additional effects were enabled, making it a thorough test. Significantly more intricate compared to what we typically include in this price bracket, which strongly indicates that this device will deliver a complete flagship experience. Then we prioritize the refresh rate, demonstrating once again that it is indeed excellent. In this scenario, we achieved an average of 90 frames per second, with the minimum being 82. This resulted in an incredibly smooth experience, showcasing the device's impressive performance. However, it's worth noting that the default screen recordings are not of the highest quality. It's possible that if we set it to the maximum graphic quality, the performance might slightly decrease. Nevertheless, the overall experience was truly remarkable. Afterward, we proceeded to play SpongeBob, and it's important to highlight that we positioned it at the maximum setting available, although as previously mentioned, this was a lower tier test in terms of price. However, given that this device performs at a flagship level, we opted for the most challenging test possible. In this scenario, it achieved 58 frames per second. Yet, as observed in the graph, it doesn't maintain a consistent 100%. Stability, if we notice fluctuations, yet the lowest it drops to is 41 frames per second, which still provides a smooth experience. Although when recording the screen, there are moments when you might notice some lost frames. However, honestly, given the level of difficulty we've set, the performance has been truly excellent. We played Asphalt, testing beyond its price, reaching 90 frames per second with maxed out graphics, and the result was, it's incredible. You're definitely going to notice some really good graphics and impressive animations. In this price range, it would be quite complicated to find a level of playability that matches this one with all the graphics settings turned on. Furthermore, in this case, take note that the heating is once again excellently controlled, making it a very good device for gamers who want a seamless experience. Then, we played Genshin Impact. By default, it runs in high quality settings. However, for this particular test, we increased it to very high quality, setting it at 60 frames per second. Additionally, we set motion blur to a very high level. Once again, the experience was incredible, averaging 59.2 frames per second with excellent stability. Obviously, there will be some minor fluctuations, but the performance drops to around 54 frames per second, which still provides a very good experience. What stands out the most is that even with this high level of graphics quality, the device manages to keep the heating under control effectively. Then, we went ahead and played Guttering Waves, which is known to be one of the most complex games out there. Given its complexity, we opted to stick with the default graphic quality settings. The only adjustment we made was to increase it to 60 frames per second to check if it could achieve that benchmark. As you can observe, it indeed managed to do so, averaging 59 frames per second, demonstrating excellent stability throughout the gameplay. It performed exceptionally well. The only thing to note is that here we notice a much more pronounced heating effect. However, it's important to understand that playing these types of content at 60 frames per second is quite a demanding task. This device has managed to address this challenge effectively, providing a remarkably smooth and seamless experience when playing. We played Bright Memory at 120 frames per second with default settings. It couldn't exceed 60 frames per second, but it maintained 60 frames per second with near perfect stability, only dropping to 57. Seeing this performance at this price is incredible. The truth is, the device performs excellently in all the scenarios we tested. Gamers will be very satisfied even though it lacks triggers like those in devices fully dedicated to gaming. If it had triggers, it would be truly spectacular. In conclusion, this device is among the most recommended on the market, featuring an attractive design, excellent water resistance, and a stunning screen, sound of very good quality. The front camera could be one of its few weak points because both in photography and video it behaves very simply, but on the back it has a very good sound quality. In the rear we find ultra-wide main camera and telephoto, although it is not a telephoto camera, very focused on long-distance zoom, but the photographs with short and medium-distance zoom come out very well. And when it comes to video recording, it lacks a bit in stabilization, but considering the price, we can overlook this. What's intriguing here is that it offers a battery life that surpasses the average smartphone, coupled with extremely fast charging. The software is also impressively equipped with numerous options, including security features and artificial intelligence. However, the most remarkable aspect of this device is undeniably the exceptional performance it can deliver. It includes the MediaTek Dimensity 9400E processor, and if you are still among those who believe that Snapdragon processors are consistently superior to MediaTek processors, you truly need to reconsider and give it a chance. It is an incredibly powerful processor in applications and games, and even video editing has shown excellent performance. This is actually one of the few devices that offers an option for. The latest feature includes the capability to record macros while playing games. This means that with just one touch, you can activate a pre-recorded series of touches. This is particularly appealing for gamers, as it enhances their gaming experience significantly. For now, we have arrived at the conclusion of this video. If you enjoyed it, you know you can show your appreciation, and we will catch up with you next time.